Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about top 3 toughest Space Marine Terminator combos. These are some of the hardest to kill infantry in the game already, and we'll see how to make them even more indestructible for your roster. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And in number 3 you have the Assault Terminators plus Ancient in the Vindication Task Force detachment from the new Black Templars Codex. Idea of this one is pretty simple. We just use the best part of the Vindication Task Force on a unit that is already super tough. Wish the Assault Terminators were as good as they were a few editions back. They are not as amazing now because of how limited their damage potential is, but they're still not bad, and 4 wound models, 4 wound break point is relatively difficult for a lot of armies to get through, especially if they rely on damage 3 stuff. They are very efficient at tanking that. A big problem though is that damage 2 stuff kills them just as efficiently as any other Terminator, and that's kind of the issue with any Assault Terminator package that doesn't have a Feel No Pain. Which is why we actually do need some extra buffs to make this whole thing work. Hence why we would attach the Ancient to the squad, which gives them the Ancient keyword, of course, for the detachment. They also get OC2 each, which means that they will actually have a chance of controlling some objectives if your opponent really wants to get that away from you. And the conditional +1 to hit and wound as well. So if they're going to be below starting strength, they get +1 to hit from the banner, and if they are below half strength, they will get +1 to wound. It's a nice bonus. It's not going to come up that often, but considering how tough this unit is, I can see it being long in a position where they get the +1 to hit bonus. But most importantly, having the Ancient in the unit allows you to have access to the conditional -1 to wound, which is highly useful for their toughness 5 to make them the mid-strength weapons, which are the bane of Terminators and always have been, less efficient against them. And then lastly, you'll use the 1 CP recitation of the Revered for the -1 to hit in shooting, and this way you've got yourself a very mighty tough Terminator squad with pretty decent OC. The unit itself costs 360 points, so that's 36 points a model for 10 guys and 75 points for the Ancient. You can also give them the enhancement Imperialis of the Eternal Crusade, which makes them -2 to charge. That's pretty helpful if you're playing a lot against melee pressure armies, and those are quite popular now. Something like World Eaters doesn't like when you're messing with their charge rolls. Also, if you're going to be rapid ingressing these guys, which I imagine maybe something that you want to do, you will actually protect yourself from being countercharged if you rapid ingress within 9 inches, because if you rapid ingress within 9 inches of a melee army, they may roll a 9, where in this case you will actually force them to roll an 11 even though you're actually 9 inches away. As always, I want to remind you about my Patreon 40K coaching service. If you're looking for help building your competitive rosters, preparing you for tournaments, or have any questions about your collection in general, check out the links for my Patreon in the description. Thank you. Second combo, I really like this one. It's Wolfguard Terminators plus Arjak plus the Saga of the Bold detachment from the Space Wolves Codex. I guess I should call it as Codex Supplement, but I just like the word Codex better. Wolfguard Terminators are very tough innately, and they cost 34 points a model, so 340 points per unit of 10. And Arjak is 95 points to add this hulking beast of a man to the squad. They can all have the storm shields, making them, in that sense, much more efficient than the Assault Terminators. To be honest, just much more efficient than the Assault Terminators. They have a big problem of strength 5 on their swords, so that's why you ideally want to have a good character in the squad to be able to provide some of those higher damage, higher strength attacks. And of course you have the Inspiring Presence stratagem in Saga of the Bolt, allowing your character unit to get lethal hits in melee, which should probably be enough for most purposes for them to punch up into higher toughnesses. So they are going to be pretty good in melee still, despite being lower strength. Their unit rule is -1 to wound when strength is higher than toughness, and that's, by the way, what I mean by conditional -1 to wound. That's always going to mean this in any of my videos, unless I say something else. And as mentioned before, it's one of the primary ways to make your Terminators stand through the anti-tank fire. You're essentially bringing their toughness up to tank levels this way. So if you're being shot at with strength 9, bringing their toughness essentially up to toughness 9, which is crazy. Arjak is not really there to bring up their durability, though his fight and death on the 4+ is useful to make sure that you get maximum return on your investment from the squad. Main idea for him is to provide us with a character keyword that is mightily useful for this detachment, which we already discussed, the inspiring presence stratagem that requires you to have a character in your squad. But this is needed as well so that you can use the 2CP heroic resolve stratagem in the shooting phase, allowing you to give them -1 damage for the phase. And this is a huge bonus for the 4-wound Terminators because, as I mentioned before, the best thing to kill them is damage 2. So you are essentially having the efficiency of that. The damage 3 then becomes a pretty good option, but still requires you double the investment compared to a normal Terminator. So these guys need to fail 2 saves to die, whereas a normal Terminator would only require 1 failed save to die. Pretty good result still. And damage 4 becomes highly inefficient against them. So 4 wound models with -1 damage is a great package, especially considering there is -1 to wound there as well. For another 2 command points, and yeah, this detachment is really CP hungry, you can use the countercharge stratagem to bully anyone off your objectives by charging them the objectives that you want to claim, by charging them in your opponent's turn. And that is a powerful stratagem, though it will be very hard for you to save up enough command points to use both the heroic resolve and the countercharge in one game. There's another reason why it's so dumb that we cannot join a Terminator captain to the Wolfguard Terminators. It just doesn't make any sense, and that would completely resolve this issue of the CP cost of this stratagem. And honestly, the captain would be a better addition to them compared to Arjac. I love Arjac, but I think generic captain makes more sense. I can imagine how amazing the converted Terminator Wolf Lords look that the people must have already done in the community, so they're just revving, waiting for GW to fix that annoying problem. And last but definitely not least are my favorite Deathwing Knights, and this one is probably, I would say, one of the toughest, if maybe not the toughest, infantry combos in the game currently. I think it's definitely up there in terms of how difficult this one is to kill pretty much for any army. I'm sure there is a way to do it more efficiently than some other methods, but generally speaking, this is really tough. It's a crown jewel of durability, as I wrote here. No 10-man unit available because that would be too crazy, so we'll just use the 5-man for our basis, and they cost 250 points or 50 points per model. They also have the shields, so 4 wounds per guy. They have once per game 4+ feeling pain from mortal wounds and devastating wounds, which should protect them and generally does protect them from that turn where you can orchestrate a bunch of mortal wounds on them. They will probably stand through that pretty well, though any wounds suffered by the Deathwing Knights that went through their save and vulnerable save toughness is still going to hurt the owner. The Wrath of the Rock detachment, which is the third part of the combo, the second part is the Dark Shroud, is going to give them -1 to wound. So you will be protected from high strength guns. So anything that wants to wound you will be either wounding you on 3s or 4s. In anything high strength, obviously it still can be lower strength than your toughness. And as an extra layer of protection, you can have the Dark Shroud parked inside a ruin somewhere close by to your Terminators that are, for example, on the objective, to give them -1 to hit in shooting aura as well. I mean, affect them with your -1 to shooting aura, I should say. So in total, that's -1 to hit, -1 to wound, -1 damage, and you need about 30 last cannon shots hitting on 3s to wipe that 5-man unit on average, or 42 shots of last cannons if you want 80% confidence of killing that, or 23 shots if you have rerolls, and 30 for 80% confidence again. Not a lot of armies bring this volume of firepower to destroy just one, and a lot of people run 3 of them. I've just reviewed a list that took, I think, second place in a GT in the previous video. You can take a look where a guy was running 15 of these guys. You're not spending any CPs on this protection. This is just all built in. Unlike the combo that we've just looked at previously, this stuff you get essentially for just running the Deathwing Knights. And they actually don't really need as much help with wounding stuff that is higher toughness than their strength. So generally speaking, the CP economy of this combo is also very good. And we can keep in mind that Ezreal also exists, so you're probably going to be generating command points on top of them, not wasting them for you. Yeah, Deathwing Knights definitely stay a very, very useful and efficient unit, despite not being OP in any way, shape, or form, even in this modified fashion. And to be honest, the Wrath of the Rock detachment is still not nearly as good as, for example, Gladius, so we are not going to see this particular combination, because if we were to compare Deathwing Knights in the Wrath of the Rock and Deathwing Knights in Gladius, they would probably be close-ish together, but the Dark Angels list in Gladius and Dark Angels list in Wrath of the Rock in general, we should keep in mind that the lists and players win the games, not particular units or unit combos. Then the Dark Angels Gladius list, in my humble opinion, is going to be in most cases more powerful than the alternative of the Wrath of the Rock, despite me genuinely liking GW's fourth attempt to make a working Dark Angels that detachment. It's really valiant how they're trying. I wish they were just as interested in Custodes as they are in Dark Angels. Let me know if there is a better Terminator combo than any of these ones, because I very well might have missed one. I would be very interested to learn that. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.